It's April 4th, 2019, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember, this is what we want. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we want. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, joined once again. It's still only in the right. We'll figure it out. We'll edit that part out when I say what's wrong. There we go. Serge, you nailed it. Well done. Well done. Welcome, everyone. This is the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. As I was saying, my name is Chris Quinn. It's very hard to talk when you only are hearing yourself back in one ear and the other ear is silent. It's very, very disruptive. But we're all good to go. And I wanted to thank, as well as Serge, I want to thank Lumpen Radio as a whole for having me on, and its fearless leader, Logan Bay, having us in here at the Co-Prosperity Sphere once again in beautiful Bridgeport, Chicago. Community of the future, I'm told. And, nice temperate day. Well, nice temperate climate in Studio B. You have anything to do with that, Serge? Was that you? You came in here and got it nice and cooled down. Got some dry ice blowing around in here ahead of time. I want to thank you guys as well as for listening live over the airwaves on 105.5 FM, Lumpen Radio. Or if you're listening on the via podcast, or if you listen to your podcasts, thank you for downloading us. Feel free to leave a review or anything like that. Always nice. And you know what? If this is a show that you guys like, maybe I'll remind you at the end and see if I think it's a show that people may like. I'll remind you at the end. Tell someone else about it. But what I like to do is usually read a little monologue about what the show's about. So basically, if you are listening for the first time, what is this show about? What is the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable? Basically, it is an opportunity for me to try to recreate some of my favorite times that are associated with beer, and that's just hanging out with people who are passionate about craft beer and who in one form or another have made it a part of their life, be it, making it or selling it or writing about it or drinking it or learning about it or all that stuff, and getting people together to talk about beer and get people's opinions from different angles. But, all informed opinions, well, except for mine, quite hot takey from time to time, but so what? It's an informed hot take. It's a guesstimate, basically, most of my opinions. But I like to get us all together and just, shoot the breeze and talk about stuff. So that's what I'm trying to recreate with this show, the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. So with that, I will introduce my guests. Before I do, I have to mention that the opinions of my guests are their own and only their own, not the opinions of any other entity that they may be affiliated with, such as Lumpen Radio or really anything other than themselves. So, who are these guests whose opinions I'm talking about? Well, I'll let you know. We're going to introduce them right now in order of seniority. I have no idea who's the senior most member. Is it? We'll go with Nate, because Nate has been on, you were on episode like 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. That was a memorable episode.
It was a memorable episode.
It took a long, long time to have a worse show than episode 2.
But it did happen.
It did. It did eventually happen.
It does make me feel better.
Yeah. So you're in rarefied air, but you're not the tippy top anymore, or the tippy bottom, whatever.
The trench.
Yeah, the trench. But welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how you been?
Pretty good.
Anything new beer-wise?
I don't know, just drinking.
Just drinking beer.
It, mostly still to this day.
Okay. What have you, I'm going to jump all over my own.
Someone's reading ahead.
Yeah, I'm reading ahead. Okay. Say you are the senior most member. You know.
Oh, wow.
You know when I'm jumping ahead in the outline. All right. Well, thanks for coming back. And hopefully you're not going to reset the record, break your own record type deal.
We'll see
don't
what
do
happens,
that.
Chris.
Yeah. I think next is Jonathan Fritz of Hopewell Brewing.
Hey, Chris.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing good. We've been real busy going into summer at Hopewell. So summer's when people want to drink even more than when it's cold out.
Going into summer. As far as I know, I think it snowed like 4 or 5 days ago here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was it Tuesday?
I mean, that's another good reason to drink beer. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been real busy. We were just kind of looking through our next couple weeks, next couple months production planning, and trying to figure out what new beers we're going to be able to package, and then also service the beers that we make year round. And in making decisions, we've kind of decided that the new beers that we're making time for are a whole bunch of new lagers.
Nice.
So this
Hear,
year
hear.
is going to be the year of the lager at Hopewell.
Can you expound on that?
Well, the next one, this coming week, we're releasing our Black Pills. We've made it since we opened 3 years ago.
I mean,
Pills.
my favorite beer that you guys make, I think I've gone on the record many times saying that. I love it. Yeah, it's really good beer. Very excited
I love
to have
that beer. And since we went through an expansion this past summer to add a canning line and a little bit more tank space, this will be the first year that we're able to have that one out in cans. So that's kind of a big deal for us. It's different sort of accessibility for people to finally have our beer in the suburbs. I don't think the Black Pills would have made it out there otherwise.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of draft that we'll be able to put out, but I think Beer Temple's already getting a keg. So.
Nice. What else and what other? Because we're going to talk about that Off Black. It's what the name of the beer in a little bit, I think. But
great.
Anything else?
The next one after that we have slotted on the brewing schedule is an unfiltered Pilsner, which is a great style. Again, you want to keep it really fresh, so we finally have the distribution network, and
Like a Paracelsus type thing, like
this
like
one's
a
just going to be a very soft Pils, definitely a little bit of haze to it, a little bit of protein and yeast in suspension. But we just want this to be no edges, very soft. It'll be out in about a month. So that'll be perfect time, hopefully, unless it snows again, for nice soft Pils to drink while fresh. And then a month after that, we'll probably have another. They'll probably all be Pilsners.
Well, when your colleague, Jake was on.
Oh, yeah, Hot Take Jake.
Hot Take Jake. He was talking about, we were talking about flagship beers, and your flagship, pretty much from day one, I believe, has been First Lager, right?
First Lager is one of our flagships.
So how does that differentiate from a process standpoint from this unfiltered Pilsner?
The unfiltered Pils, we centrifuge our beer.
Okay.
So we're able, it's not technically all of our beer is unfiltered, because
Right.
centrifuge produces semi-bright beer, not technically bright beer, but I think it's pretty darn bright. And so for this new Pilsner, actually we came up with the name, it's Ixnay. It's going to be
On the
straight
Pilsner pay?
Exactly. It's going to be straight from the fermenter. We're going to bypass the centrifuge step and get some nice texture and flavors from the junk in suspension.
Nice. All right. That's the technical term, the junk and suspension.
Yeah. I think our brewer Steven and Hot Take Jake would be thrilled to hear me say that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for coming on, and exciting news about all the many Pilsners and all its varieties that you will be releasing. So there'll be, what other types are there? There's the slow pour Pils, which is a style now. We've talked about that.
We just bought some of those faucets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, did you? The Pilsner Urquell
Yeah, they're
ones?
really fun.
Yeah. Let me know if they break. If they don't break, I might buy a few as well.
We got I think Micromatic ones, and
they'll break. Good luck.
So far, so good. They're great.
I've got several flow controls of different generations, all of which have broken.
Well, we only have 10 taps in our tap room, and right now, 2 of them are the flow control.
Nice.
So we do that we always have one of our barrel-aged sours, which tend to be a little bit higher carb, so we put that on that faucet, and we're going to run the Pilsner line with one of those faucets too. So we'll see. If you want a real slow pour, you come to me, and I'll
just crank it all the way down until it's like a drop.
I'll give you a nice 10-minute pour.
Yeah, it's basically just like it's like a dripping faucet.
Water torture. Yeah.
Okay, good. Cool. And you also reminded me, I have to make a note now. I'm going to be in Denver for CBC next week, and I'm going to go up to the giant, super expensive Micromatic display booth. And it's not even really fair to call it a booth. I mean, they have it's like I don't know what you would call it.
It's like a small country.
Yeah, it's like a small country. And complain that their most expensive faucets break, and they don't seem to care.
Chris Quinn, faucet truther.
Yeah, they don't break. They just let in air, and then they get these weird, gross fisheye bubbles in them. You know what I'm talking about, right,
Absolutely.
Shana? It's the worst. You guys have them at Dovetail, right?
Sure do.
You have the bald generation ones, the Generation 2.
Yep.
I got a bunch of those, and I have Generation 3. They just let in air, and it just ruins the pour. And it's an incredibly expensive faucet from what's supposed to be the Cadillac, and then you realize that it's really a Pinto. So,
ouch.
Yeah. Shots fired, Micromatic.
Yeah, come at us.
Yeah. Why don't you, I don't know, replace your stuff and not say, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. It's the official line I got.
You're going to blow this thing wide open.
Wide open. Everyone's going to be
CBC.
Yeah.
The opinions expressed on
right
this
now,
show are not.
Already people are just like, let me see let's see if there's any back episodes I'll re-listen to. Maybe that one with Nate way back in the day would be better. Anyway.
Better radio than a bar owner complaining about his equipment.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and calling out the company name.
Let's tag them in the show notes.
It's true. I should.
Like people do with airlines all the time on Twitter.
Yeah. My next guest is Mr. Andrew Gill. How are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah. I woke up in Pittsburgh this morning, and I drove back. Flew in last night. Picked up. Well, let's talk about you. You asked me. You were very polite, but I think you're just being polite. How are you?
Were you planning on waking up in Pittsburgh, or was it
a
crazy night? Or?
Yeah. Just like one of those things where you just wake up in Pittsburgh and you're like, oh no, now what do I do? I gotta.
That could be a euphemism for something.
Yeah, that's true.
Woke up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's true. Look it up on Urban. Actually, don't look.
Don't do that. Do not do that.
You do not want to. Waking up in Pittsburgh is not something that you really should even know exists. What's new with you?
Not a ton. I feel like I'm beer media emeritus now. I just am not doing a lot. One of our topics might be about the death of beer media. So
yeah, I mean it's been a
minute.
It's been a minute. It's been a rather slow and torturous trip, but we'll get to that.
But yeah, all is good.
Good.
Otherwise,
yeah. That's good to hear. And then last but certainly not least, Ms. Shana Solarte of so many places. Where are you from?
Your local pint glass.
Yeah, that's wherever your local pint glass is, that's where you will find her. So
that's what it feels
Dovetail,
like.
Dovetail, Cicerone, other stuff, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, let's go with that.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. Just got back from a week on the road, and then I also will be in Denver next week for
that's right,
the CBC.
Cool.
So
isn't it? Is it kind of for me? It's a little bit of a bummer that it's in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, I was just there.
Right. GABF is there
we were just there, and we're gonna be there.
Right.
again.
And then, whenever a big, like, national level conference or fest is in Denver, other than GABF, I just feel like it's just cheating. Shelton Fest is one that I really like, which is with the Shelton Brothers Importers. They had it in Denver this year. And it's like, come on. I like this. Great city. Don't get me wrong. Love the place.
Is the fix in?
Yeah, it is. Well, the BA is headquartered in Denver, and I think
Cutting out the travel budget.
Yeah, they're just like, have you booked anything? No. Let's just make it Denver again. That way I
do it
can
here.
just, I haven't. My Airbnb fell through. So all right, well then maybe I'll see you out there. What else? So you just got back from a week of travel. Business or pleasure?
Business.
Oh.
I was out in Mexico, which is a pretty good place to go for business.
Yeah.
Big beer fest conference out there in Ensenada. It's like hour south of Tijuana.
Okay.
So we went out there and ran a certified cicerone exam.
Cool.
Which was very exciting. Attended the conference, gave a couple presentations.
Do you speak Spanish?
See.
Ah.
That's about it.
Okay. So no. The answer
Yeah,
is-
I speak Spanish.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, there's a lot of Spanish speakers at Cicerone then. See.
Are there?
Isn't Pat fluent?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
His Spanish is fine. He just doesn't speak it as readily as I might.
Oh, so you're very fluent then?
Let's say fluenter.
Fluenter. Okay.
Not fluent.
Okay. Beer.
Spectrum.
Beer fluent.
You can
yeah.
get around. You're
Can go
beer
with that.
fluent.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, thanks for in your off time when you're not traveling.
I actually, just like you, I came back only for this.
Oh, good. I just came back. I didn't only come back just for this. Really, why I came back, and I'm just waiting for someone to. No one even has to ask. I'm just going to talk about it. Doesn't matter. Is to I have a big announcement to make. I have a third child. I'm an adopted father of a third child. It's an American bison named Dusty, and he's going to go up on my wall. So I picked him up today. And
Is that why you were in Pittsburgh?
yeah,
Are there a lot of bison in Pittsburgh?
there is one less now. I'm bringing him home to the prairie. And
You did just move, right?
Yep, just moved. He's going to stay at the bar for a little bit. He's a little big for my house. Although, if my wife annoys me enough, I'll bring him home and mount him. I'll find somewhere to put him up.
I thought
That'll fix everything.
I thought
Yeah.
that was why you moved, so you'd have room for the bison.
True. It's true. Yeah, yeah, that's everything. No, this won't work at all to the realtor. You have to find another place. So that's why, I flew in last night, picked up Dusty, and now he's back home where he belongs, and I couldn't be more proud of him. He really did a great job. So,
I got a question. How many cold, crispy beers had you drank when you bought the bison? Seems like kind of a late night purchase.
it was a late night purchase, very late night. It was a 2 a.m. Purchase. I don't know how many beers I'd had, but I had just got done working, and I was probably exhausted, and saw it online and made an offer. That's not really, that sounds dirty. I didn't make an offer. He spoke to me and said, "Father, bring me home to the prairie where I belong," and I did. So I regret nothing, and the best however many hours going out there and back, well worth it.
That reminds, I once bought a broken guitar at around the same time of night, and I thought I was getting a great deal until it showed up. Was it everything that you expected it to be? Oh,
yeah.
that's great.
You'll see him.
I can't wait.
You'll meet him.
I'll get the proper introduction.
Yeah, he's
Can we
awesome.
get Dusty on the show?
You know what? I might do it. Yeah, I
Did-
might get him on the
Did
show.
you buy him a ticket or did you check him?
No, I rented a car.
Oh, a car.
I rented a car and put him in the back, and there he is.
Oh, wow. He's a
I'm
beaut.
going to get some wallet-sized ones so I can show them to everybody.
He looks kind of like you.
Yeah, he does. You're right. I can see that. It's the compassion in his eyes. So yeah, that's how I spent a good portion of my week. So going and picking up a giant mammal.
As one does.
Yeah, as this one does. So yeah,
Just a grown man.
very excited about that. But on the way back, I was going through Ohio, stopped by Headhunter, picked up Fatheads, picked up some Headhunter IPA, which have been obsessed with probably for the past 4 or 5 months. Just a really nice old school beer, so that's nice. Brought some here. And also their new Session IPA too. So I haven't had that one. So looking forward to that. Serge, should we take no, let's go through and talk about the beers and then we'll take a break. How about you, Jonathan? Any beers you've had lately that you've been enjoying?
Yes, actually. There's a new brewery in St. Louis called Rockwell. We were just brewed with them a hoppy lager called Party Sub. And Andy was in town, and we brewed with him and made a really great beer. It was the first beer I'd ever had with Styrian.
Oh, you made it up here?
We made it up here.
Sorry.
And with Styrian Dragon hops, which I've never tried before.
Whoa.
So that was really fun, a nice sort of cantaloupe herby flavor from it. But his beers, I'm not pitching our beer, his beers that he brought up to share were excellent. They're all no edges on them, really clean, really well balanced. He brought us a sixtel to show us of his something from his Slow Movers series. It's a 3% English mild.
Bless.
And it was super tasty to have on in the office at Hopewell.
That's cool. Nice.
But everything was great. If anyone's in St. Louis, it's every beer was great.
I like how he, for that entire series, sets the expectation of any store or bar owners.
I don't know if that's an outward-facing name for the series.
Oh, the Slow Mover series?
I think he's made a commitment that he wants to make some beers that don't need to move for him to still want to make them.
That's cool. That's awesome, yeah. Andy's a very nice guy. I met him many years ago when he was with Perennial.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That was cool. It's great to hear that he's making some solid beers down there. Cool. Anyone else? No one's had any beers or had anything they're excited about.
Stay away from this stuff, Chris.
I went over to Patty Long's this week.
Oh yes.
To have some 12-day-old, unfiltered, unpasteurized Pilsner Kel, and it was glorious.
You always do.
I go to like every time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. JP, who works with me in both locales, and I are sort of unfiltered Pilsner Kel groupies. Just kind of follow it around when it comes to town.
I know of at least 2 different occasions where I got there just as it was like kicking. Like the keg kicked while I was in the building, but before I got a pour of it. And both times I think you and JP were both there, as well as many members of Dovetail, each with multiple mugs of it.
Yeah, that's right.
None shared with me, none offered.
No, you just get there earlier.
Yeah.
See, that's my fear. That's why I've never done the thing.
Yeah, like, we've been here since 4. Like,
tapping at 6, we got there at 5:30. What's your excuse?
Right. Well, I love my son. I'm a family man.
I love my dead bison's son.
Yeah, exactly.
Had to go to Pittsburgh. I don't know.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Delicious beer.
It's awesome.
How was it tasting this time?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
it
talking
tastes,
with...
it always is good, but sometimes it's like out of this world good.
It was really, really good this time.
Cool.
I was talking with Brian, who brings it into town, and he said there was sort of a mix-up with ordering dates or something, and we wound up getting it way fresher than normal. So that was pretty cool. And there's a couple more tappings.
Bank error in your favor.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Sweet.
I think there's a couple more opportunities in the next week or two, so you might see me there too.
All right.
I may or may not.
Yeah, the Rattler's going to get
order a pint for you.
Cool. You won't, but
no,
thank you.
Not.
It's the thought that counts. or at least the illusion that you'll be thinking of it. Nate, how about you?
About a month ago, I got an incredibly fresh draft pour of Kloster Ondex Doppelbock Dunkel, and I can't stop thinking about it. I mean, I've had that beer before in bottles, and it's good, but it was just an otherworldly good Doppelbock, and I love Doppelbock.
Where was that?
Oh, my neighborhood bar.
Nice.
It's a nice thing for me.
Yeah.
That I get to have.
Yes.
A little treat.
At that same bar, on that same draft line, the Ondex is no longer there because I know the bar you're talking about, and now that bar has a Dortmunder lager from Three Floyds on called
Region X.
Region X, exactly. Have you had it?
Yeah, I did.
Do you like it?
Oh, that was really good.
I love it.
And it reminds me, like, how many Dortmunder export lagers that Three Floyds has made. Like, it's like 7 or 8 per their website. I'm like, is this replacing the last one? Is this Jinx Proof now?
Right.
They have a falling out with the Jinx Proof guys. Like, nope, this is just another one.
It's really good.
It is really good. Credit where it's due.
I've had several of them. The malt character on it is just so incredible. Really, really awesome. It's light, but also really has a lot of depth to it, and a really awesome honey note to it that I think is really spectacular. So that is, I have 2 beers that I've been excited about. That is one. The other is, and I think Jonathan, you were there when I discovered this beer, is Great Lakes has a new beer, a new IPA called IPA. It's not named after some terrible event or something, or some sort of historical
crimes.
Yeah, Cleveland event that happened. It's just called IPA, and I really liked it. I've only had it that one time. I haven't had it again since I tasted it with you, Jonathan, but I thought it was really cool. I liked it. It was very light, not... I don't know. How would you describe it, Jonathan?
I thought it was good. Soft. Tasted like a Great Lakes IPA.
That's what you said at the time, yeah.
Like there's good malt expression on it. Not overly aromatic, not overly bitter. Just like a beer that you could definitely dig into and kind of experience the hops, or just kind of drink and forget about it.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good, and it tasted... contemporary as well, which
I didn't think it
happy to
tasted
see.
that hazy.
Oh yeah, well, it was a little juicy, and it was a milkshake, wasn't it? Wasn't there lactose
I'm
in
pretty
it?
sure that if you ask anyone from Great Lakes, they'll be glad to tell us.
Yeah, there was
There's a
vanilla.
ton of sugar
There was
in
definitely vanilla and lactose in it, and
No, I think it's exciting to see a brewery like that releasing beers. Like, that's what breweries like that should be releasing, is just really awesome IPAs that are more of a modern IPA than they would have released 10 years ago. But rather than like digging into an amber lager or whatever, like doing something that's sort of a modern expression but still really accessible is what they should be doing.
Yep. Yeah. And executing it very well. So cool. Shana, please.
Sorry.
You already went.
I'm sorry.
Andrew?
Yeah, you were mentioning Great Lakes. I was thinking about them when you were talking about the Dortmunders, because their Dortmunder Gold was one of my original craft beers that I got into 12, 13 years ago or something. But the beer I had recently was just super boring. It's Allagash Coolship Resurgam. It's really not exciting.
Love it.
Yeah, it's just really snooze fest. But it was my first time having it.
What do you think?
It was super good. Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah,
we had a at the bottle shop a couple months back. We had a blind goose or goose style tasting.
Yeah,
and we had 4 of them. And I think that man right there, Mr. Nate Nelson, did you get all 4 of them right? I think you might have gotten one. You narrowed it down to 3, and the other ones you got.
I think we were ranking them from favorite to least favorite, and I put Resurgam third after a corked bottle of Lindemann's Goofy Renee.
Yes, that's true. No, after that you put it? Oh, you did?
No, I put
Before,
the corked
yeah.
bottle dead last.
Yeah.
For reasons.
Yes. But it was the ones you put above it were Bone Black Label and
yeah.
Cantillon Classic.
I love Black Label.
I mean, that's that's not really to come in third behind those two is not a terrible
It's rarefied
thing.
air.
Yeah.
There are only winners.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I don't know, maybe you didn't get the Lindemans, or I don't know which one you didn't get.
Yeah, no one knew
You
what
nailed,
it was
you
'cause there
nailed
was
Cantillon
debate.
and Black Label. You're like, oh, I know what these are. So
Yeah.
that was quite impressive.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go listen to some promos, see what other shows are out there, and then we'll come back and talk more beer on the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, and I'm joined by my guests, Shana, Nate, Jonathan, and Andrew. And also Serge is here. We're all just hanging out. And I'm enjoying a nice dark lager. So why don't we talk about that? So we're drinking the off black, right? Or I am anyway. And I know that Dovetail, I was at Dovetail a couple days ago. I just moved, and I'm now about 2 blocks away from
Stumbling distance.
Yeah, I am definitely stumbling distance. And they have a Czech dark lager. Very nice. Super kind of almost like an Imperial Munich Dunkel type thing, like super melanoid-y, like really kind of like toasty. And then Mars, I know, had their black lager that we had on the show a couple weeks ago. And then, what else? Who else? Spiteful has a dark lager that they came out with. Obviously, Metropolitan has had one for a while. Their Magnetron.
I just saw Pipeworks is
Yes,
doing
Pipeworks is doing
short
one.
spear.
Yeah.
I've had it. It's tasty.
I haven't
It's really
gotten a
good.
chance to try it. I can't wait.
Yeah, I tried it while it was still from the tanks, and it was still needed to
Oh,
lager.
man. Must be nice.
Yeah, right. You ever get the chance to do that? You should.
Jeez.
And so it's for a style that you don't hear consumers asking about. It's interesting to me to just have so many breweries who, are pretty, they have their similarities, but certainly their differences as well. All doing this, and I got to talking. I forget who I was talking to. Was it you, Jonathan?
I think we were talking about it. I'm just as curious about why they're all coming out right now.
Were you the person who told me that like
But
all the hype breweries have like all their haze whales? And
Hot
then a
Take
dark-
Jake was doing some research and just seeing who else was releasing a black lager or dark lager, and a lot of the Hazy Boys are releasing dark lagers right now.
And these weren't all posts on April 1st, right? These are actual posts.
That's something that I'll need to check and post.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I'm excited that there are so many dark lagers because the ones that I've tried have been really good. We've made this beer for 3 years, draft only, every summer. Our first summer, the seasonals we were selling were a coffee brown ale, a
Nailed it.
black lager, and then a higher ABV sour. So we really nailed the summer season
Yeah,
in
it's
our
good.
first year. And I mean, we did fine, but
I honestly think this beer could. I'm holding the off black in my hand. I think this could be a fairly seasonless beer.
for sure, yeah, it's a great beer. We generally brew this not because it's exclusive, but we brew it for the tap room, and like anybody can feel free to order it if they want to. But we generally brew it for the tap room so that we can have a nice range. We can show some chops. I personally love this beer. It's one of my favorite beers that we make. But it's also one of those beers, and I think you were sort of getting to this, where are customers looking for it? No. Customers don't like black beer. Customers don't like dark beer. Same thing with brown ales.
Well, what about stouts?
They also don't like stouts.
Oh.
I mean,
Interesting.
Unless they taste like candy.
Your customers, you're saying, or
Yeah.
beer customers?
yeah, it's an easy keg to sell to a bar because it rounds out your list. But sometimes that's a keg that you sell them, and all right, I'll see you in 3 months when you get through this keg. So you kind of have to be careful about where a beer like this goes. It needs to go to a spot like Beer Temple that knows how to sell it and has the customers that are seeking out a beer like this.
Nice.
Yeah, it's surprising that so many other breweries are releasing dark lagers right now. So
That's why
fun.
I wanted to. That's why I was just curious what, to talk about it. I mean, as someone, Andrew, who no longer has any interest in beer, how do you feel about dark lagers?
I mean, I'm thinking back to the dark ages of back when I was drinking the Dortmunder Gold from Great Lakes, and I would buy this beer Kostritcher
Yeah.
at the liquor stores, and would that be in this category? That would be like a
Yeah.
Schwartz
It's a
beer,
Schwartz
right?
beer, yeah.
Totally.
And my friends and I loved that beer. It was like the only German beer or the only import beer we'd buy. So I could get behind it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's interesting, and Kostritzer, it's funny, has had some tough times here in the States, mainly just getting here, at least I shouldn't say in the States, in Chicago. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know in the past there had been, and I have not looked at it lately, some serious issues with getting that beer even remotely fresh, and
Light them up.
yeah, no, there was some reps who were also exacerbated by it, and just like, what are we gonna do?
I do think your comments are interesting, though, Jonathan, that they don't sell very well. Like black beers just don't sell, because one of my good friends, he's not a beer geek, but he's really loves black IPAs for some reason.
Oh,
And
it's a shame.
You found the one person.
I know, exactly. And-
I like them. I mean, I don't drink them all the time, but I liked them
yeah,
when
but
they,
I mean,
when
he
they were
just
around.
he latched onto it for some reason, and he will go to beer stores, Benny's and stuff, and ask, and there will be none available. I mean, he's from Wisconsin. He likes the black top from Nucleus.
Yes.
And so he will stock up on that whenever he finds it. But I wonder if we'll have a brief craze with dark black lagers, and then they'll go the way of the buffalo like that, or the bison.
Bison.
Yeah.
They go the way of at least one bison.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great if people started ordering them. I mean, the main concern, it's not that people don't buy them, it's that certain people buy them. And
Wait, that's your main concern?
no. As an aside, it's not that
Not that
nobody but is buying them. But the main concern is then keeping beer fresh. So you have to be careful about not overproducing or making sure it's in the right place at the right time for the right person.
Well, I wonder if there's like this sudden interest in brewing dark lagers, at least here. I mean, I'm not keeping a really sharp eye on other markets, admittedly. But
Well, I mean, just talking about the Rockwell brewery, I mean, not to say that a mild is anything like a Schwartz beer, but
it's a not super popular style.
and it's also a malt-driven,
Right.
sessionable
Yeah, you're not
beer.
getting crazy yeast character. You're not getting crazy hop character. So I wonder if this sudden interest in like explosion in dark lagers will push or turn the tide of consumers to be a little more open to it, or if maybe this is just a blip on the radar. I don't know what you guys think. I know that on my end, from like a service standpoint, when people come in and they don't know what to order and they say, well, I don't like dark beers, they generally don't really know why they don't like dark beers. They just think they don't like dark beers, to which I usually say, do you drink coffee? And they say yes. And I said, you'll like dark beers.
Yeah. I think a lot of times it's because they think they're going to be incredibly bitter. And I think back in the day, maybe a lot of imperial stouts were really bitter, but I don't. I mean, certainly not. Dark lagers are not going to be very bitter.
Or the sense of it being heavy.
Yeah,
like
right.
Guinness is so heavy.
It's like the
Such a
lightest
heavy
light.
beer.
It's a diet beer. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, I think even if it's not your top seller, like breweries owe it to your drinkers to be experimenting outside of the stuff that's just going to rip through. You know, like no one got into this to make one beer. Like we want to be experimenting around, and I mean that's why we've made Off Black every single year, is because we think it's a great beer and it sells. I mean, it sells well enough that we can keep brewing it every year, but it's probably not going to be a year-round beer for us.
I was going to ask that. I mean, do you think that, Shana, you alluded to, if customers are looking for this style of beer, and my question is, are they, or is this kind of like what? I mean, why did you originally brew it at Hopewell? Why did you originally brew Off Black? Do you remember why? Was it trying to round out a portfolio? Was it to?
We were interested in the style. I mean,
Yeah.
we love Schwartz beers. Our take on this is more of a black pils. It's actually a riff on our first lager, which you were talking about earlier. It's a year-round beer that we make. The Tettnang hops. So Tettnang is in this beer, similar sort of malt build, except that when you're working with malt, you can hopefully separate out the heaviness and all of the roastiness of the burnt malt, and make it more of a light, sessionable drinking experience. And actually, I remember when we were first doing the recipe on this, we were trying to decide if we wanted it to have roast flavor, because you can make black beer without roast flavor. But we decided we wanted to have just a little bit of that roasty flavor to play against the Tettnang, so that it wasn't just black first lager, because you can do that. But it's a fun way to experiment in new beer styles, and that's, like I said, that's why you open a brewery, is because you love all different kinds of beer and you want to be able to make that.
That's kind of what I was hoping you would say, because that is what excites me a lot about craft beer, is when there are beers that the people at the brewery are genuinely excited about, and I think that excitement will trickle down or get passed along to the consumer. At least, the excitement and the passion, and then people can kind of think for themselves whether they like it. And I think it's really cool. And the reason I'm hopeful that it might be something that is a brewery driven kind of resurgence of this style, not even resurgence, just like a increased interest in this style. Why all of a sudden so many are doing it, and it seems like they haven't been communicating with one another. I'm pretty certain it's not because the consumers are demanding it all of a sudden. I just think it's because they think these beers are really cool, and you know what? There's probably not a lot that you can just go to the store and buy, so let's just go make our own, and we really like them. And I think that's, to me, what I always loved about craft beer was you could, I don't know, you felt like there was a term you used, Jonathan, the other day, perspective. And when, you get some of the perspective of these breweries based on what they're putting out, and if every brewery is putting out the same beers, like, oh, this beer gets the most bottle caps, well, then we have to make one of those styles too. I'm sure there are, I know there are brewers here in the city who make really good versions of that and are excited about those styles and genuinely do love them. I also know there's brewers who are making really good examples of that beer who don't really care about that style. And hey, you got to keep the lights on. I get that you have to do that, and you have to give consumers what they want, but I don't know. I want to see people kind of pushing beer to people too that they think they're going to like, but you have to, maybe go outside your comfort zone a little bit to try it.
I don't think that Hopewell is necessarily even we're not trying to push beer, like you said that I said. Perspective is what we're trying to get across, and if we're trying to get across our perspective, which with everything we're trying to make really bright, clean, approachable beer, something that has a bit of a hook to it, then it's easier to show the full range of who you are as a brewery if you're doing a lot of different things. And we make a really wide range of beers. Even if we're not making every single different kind of beer people want, if you come into our tap room, then you can see we have stuff that spent a year in oak barrels and a really nice wild program that we always have going. We have classic IPAs. We have different kinds of lagers. And this is just another thing in that spectrum of of our beer portfolio that should be telling the same Hopewell story. It's telling the same, like, what are we trying to get across as a brewery with just totally different beer.
Is there a reason you guys don't do some of the most, hyped styles? I don't want to call them popular styles because I think IPA and lager are probably killing anything that's related to like pastry or milkshake, or I mean Juicy Hazy's pretty big now, but
I've heard of that one.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you guys haven't brewed either of the styles?
I have had some good examples of all those styles, but I don't think anyone at Hopewell thinks that that's the best way for us to get across our perspective. I think that the best way that we've found is that the styles that we're choosing, and there's no hazy beers on our brew sheets so far. Mm-hmm. But that's not to say that we'll never experiment in that style. But when we do, if we do, it'll certainly be a Hopewell perspective, and hopefully that means that we are making something that you want a second pint of. That's always very important to us, that it's a beer that you want to keep drinking and not just have this and then move along, and that it'll be approachable for beer drinkers and people who aren't always drinking beer, and that it'll just be very clean with no edges on it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Nate?
About what?
About dark lagers or dark beers.
Oh, Chris, I love dark lagers.
Well, I know you like the Ondex.
I do love Ondex, and I would also say that the Eyinger Dunkel Lager is probably like a top 5 beer for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've come on this show in the past and lamented that Munich Dunkel isn't more popular, because I think it has the makings of being really popular. If not, I don't think it's super popular in even Germany anymore, but I do think in America, where we drink much more diverse beer styles than they do in Germany, that I think there is a place for a low alcohol, flavorful, malt driven beer
with some roast.
What is that?
Have
sound?
you heard of this place in town called Dovetail Brewery?
I have.
It's a lot of low alcohol, malt driven lager styles there, including a Munich Dunkel.
I mean, toasted and roasted. Yeah, but
no, I get your point.
Right, but they're not. There aren't a lot of places doing them. There's not. It's not a style that seems to be poised up until the last couple months to really have made much gains at all.
Well, I mean, Chris, isn't this an outgrowth to an extent of craft beer drinkers, reigniting their love affair with lager beer?
Yeah.
To an extent.
Okay.
As as people get back into the groove of drinking lager.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We're getting music in our headphones.
Oh,
I'm trying
weird.
I'm trying to figure out what it is. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I mean, at a certain point, people are going to be, expecting something more than a classic, German or Czech Pils or easy drinking American style lager. They're going to want something that is, a little further out of bounds. And roasty, darkish lager kind of fits that bill. And it's something that people don't know they want until you give it to them.
Right? No, I mean, there are certainly times where I've tasted people out on that style, and they are like, "Oh, yeah, this is
It's really
great.
good.
Yeah, I really
and super
want them."
crisp and refreshing. And
Along those lines, do you guys think that the fact that Lagunitas is now brewing Newcastle will kind of play into this at all, or help the craft dark lager thing, or I don't know. I mean, finally Newcastle's in cans and brown bottles as well, I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
So this, I mentioned this to you, I think, a couple weeks ago when I was on. I don't think we got into it. We did a side by side at the office of old Castle, I should say, and new Newcastle, and we got into this whole thing about the Newcastle drinker, because think to any bar you've ever been to where you see somebody drinking out of a clear bottle of Newcastle. That's probably like crusty old dude, right?
Or 20-year-old Nate Nelson.
Fair. So
That was my drink.
I've only drunk Newcastle out of pitchers that were poured off of dirty tap lines. So
fair.
Right.
Also fair.
I asked everybody else at Hopewell the last time they drank Newcastle, and it was always before we were 21.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we were talking about this, how Lagunitas is brewing Newcastle now, and it's all sea hops and it's brown bottles, and effectively the classic flavor profile of Newcastle is gone. It's no longer, I would say it's no longer smelling like English hops, but it didn't anyway.
Yeah.
It's not going to be skunked to all get out because it's not in clear bottles. Do you guys think that's going to be an issue with like old curmudgeon coming to your corner bar and asking for an import beer?
Yes, I do, and I don't think that Lagunitas brewing it is going to help it in any other regard.
Yeah, I don't
think,
know.
Yeah, people get used to a certain taste. It's always kind of tasted like back sweetened to me in a really
Well, and that's
bad
the other
way.
thing. The rumor is that they stopped using a really rich malt bill years ago, and it's just caramel color at this point. I don't know how much weight that carries, but that's
It'd be unsurprising.
no, it wouldn't be entirely surprising.
And didn't they change the label as well?
They did.
Yeah.
Total overhaul.
no, it says Newcastle, it says brown, it says ale. Everything else has changed.
Yeah, if you're
Cool.
going to the store and you want to buy a 6-pack of Newcastle and you're looking for the old packaging with the clear bottles, you're not going to find it. And if you're
But the luckily nobody is doing that.
right. That's what
True.
I thought it was interesting. It was kind of turning on its head these like zombie old brands that are brought back, because usually the rationale is like buy a brand that someone sort of knows, brew it the cheapest possible way or with the least care or whatever. And now Lagunitas they're kind of like trumping that they're making it better, but I don't know that it's going to work or anyone's going to care, but it was kind of an interesting take that you don't often see. I don't think I've ever seen it before.
no, it's like a total overhaul, but
Like
maintaining the brand. It
Yeah.
just seems like why?
Yeah, and I mean that's a great point, Andrew, that they're basically doing the exact opposite of what's been happening with craft beer for the past 5 years or so, where it's craft brewery bought by bigger brewery, brewed on the bigger system, and still passed off as small batch craft stuff. I think is it St. Archer out of California or something like that. It's
But I would think also like Lagunitas might be one of the only acquired breweries that had production facilities large enough to take on a project like this.
Right.
They have basically a mega brewery here in Chicago, right? I mean, it's huge. So maybe this was the only situation like this where it could have happened.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, but it is interesting.
I've got a question for you. Do you think, for Andrew, do you think that this is a similar project to when Off Color brewed their version of High Life? Because that's another sort of example. I mean, on a much smaller scale, but to bring that brand forward by giving a more craft twist to it.
Although that's still a super popular brand, it's not moribund by any means. Like it's not sort of like dying a slow death like Newcastle would have been.
Yeah, for them it was that was sort of drawn out of mutual interest because everybody at Off Color just loves High Life. And a lot of folks at Miller love Off Color.
But it is maybe one of the only scenarios similar.
Mm-hmm.
We came up with a good idea of how they can start selling Newcastle, because selling a brown ale in 2019 is not where I'd want to be. But in the Caribbean, it's very popular to drink malt soda. Like Goya makes one. It seems like that
so
would be
sweet.
an excellent place to sell Newcastle because it's similar sort of flavor. And they're not averse to dark beer down there. Guinness is like the number one beer brand. So I feel like Lagunitas is just maybe looking for a reason to take some work trips down to better climate.
They have been focused on Mexico for a long time. So
Yeah, I think it's only a matter. Well, first let me say you're listening to WLP NLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpin Radio, Bridgeport, and then after I say that, let me just say that I think, with Lagunitas being owned by Heineken, do you guys? Let's have a verbal vote. Who thinks that Lagunitas is within the next 5 years going to be implementing kind of the Heineken model where it's brewed all over the world, and when you go to every little island in the Western Hemisphere, that Heineken is kind of made on that island or a neighboring island. That and Guinness. Those are the two that are just made all over the place. The Guinness that's so popular in the Caribbean is often brewed down there, and in Africa, it's famously the foreign export is hugely popular there, and it's I think even regionally in Africa, it's brewed a little bit differently depending on where it is. So, do you think Lagunitas could go that route? And
Absolutely.
I think they intend to.
That's what they're doing.
I also think that.
it's probably like a trump card up their sleeve, right? If I was them, I would wait until sales slow enough and then pull the cord. Like whenever you get to that point, you just sort of say, okay, now it's time to spread it all over the world.
IPA everywhere.
Yeah. Exactly.
Imagine that. Imagine a fresh brewed IPA when you're in the in the Caribbean or wherever.
It makes perfect sense for them because,
Totally.
craft is exploding everywhere that it can. So why wouldn't they come in with a polished product and just outperform any small entity wherever you are?
Or way outperform anything that's brought onto the island and
Absolutely.
has been sitting
Any import.
in an unrefrigerated, warehouse somewhere just boiling.
I haven't kept track, but they were building a brewery in Azusa, California, right?
I think
to service Mexico, right?
Yep.
Is it online? It's probably
I think it
operating
is.
I think it
now,
is,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same size as the one here.
Yeah.
It's
So
giant.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So they're
They make
well
a lot of beer.
So just the Lagunitas facilities can do a lot already. So yeah, I imagine maybe they're doing it already. I don't know, but who knows? I don't work there. So.
I think I don't think they are. I don't think they're brewing it all over the world yet, but I asked because I think they are. I think that's going to be the model. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to do that.
Yeah,
as
why
well.
wouldn't they start brewing Lagunitas IPA in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Why not?
The small amount that I can remember the manifesto Tony McGee wrote when they did that, I think even acknowledged that in his 10,000 words that he wrote. So,
Oh, did he? Is that what,
I feel like he did in some way. Maybe it was poetic, interpretation, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It was something about being a partnership with everyone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a partner with everyone now. Well, why don't we take a break? You got any? Yeah, I got the thumbs up. Serge is ready to go. I think I was listening to if it's anything based on the cue of what I heard in my ears, it's going to be some some nice little rhythmic music you got coming up. So we'll listen to that for the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and talk more beer here on the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Welcome back to Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn. I am joined by my guests. Thank you very much. Andrew Gill, Jonathan Fritz, Nate Nelson, and Shana Solarte. And producer Serge. DJ Serge, really. Some good tunes you had picked out there. It was not really your normally this type of stuff you do, but okay, maybe you're making you going through just a change in what your musical output now, or he doesn't like the joke. But anyway,
Serge is really angry right now.
He's steaming.
It's a good thing no one gives him a mic.
Yeah. So we like to read letters from time to time, electronic letters mostly, but you can also send an actual letter from listeners, just like you guys. So if there's anything you want to talk about, if you send a letter, then we'll talk about it. Perhaps it might take a little while. So I had a letter on the outline, but guys, I'm going to switch it up on you. That's not the letter I'm going to read.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I was ready to tell that kind of drink some Labatt Blue Citra.
We can get back to that one too.
Nice.
But yeah, I realized that I had in my bin of emails to bring onto the show and talk about letters, I should say, emails, no, electronic letters, I mean. And there was one from the founder of the Ale Apothecary, because we had talked about them on the show, and I had been talking on episode 161 about just some fears that I had about wild ales and how they're kind of I feel not doing as hot as they used to be, especially the American wild ales or the non-lambics. Even really, honestly, the lambics have slowed down a little bit too. The hype machine around those.
Yeah.
And I think there's more really good sour and wild ale than ever being made. And, I think what I had said is when I see some of this amazing, top-tier wild ale coming into Chicago from out of market, I'm excited, but also a little nervous because I was like, oh boy, why do these guys need to be in Chicago? Are they not doing well? I hope they're doing well and stuff like that. And so Paul had he had written in a letter, and it's been a little while. So that I just wanted to give some backstory. But I have talked to him or emailed with him since then, and he's okay with me reading this letter. It wasn't necessarily meant to be read over the air, but he said that feel free to do it. He writes a blog post about me too that he mentions in here, and it blasts the show a little bit. I think totally fairly, by the way. Anyway, Paul writes, "Hey Chris, caught your podcast with Kate Bernot. Is it Bernot or Bernat?
Bernat.
Bernot. Okay, no. Okay, so it's both.
It's Bernat.
Bernat. Okay, I caught your podcast with Kate Bernat recently. It inspired me to blog about it for a number of reasons. You can read the post here, and then there was a link that you guys can't get to. But if you were to click it, is somebody in there making noises? Mm-hmm. Some crazy person? Okay. And the blog is mountainbrewery.org, and the post is from February 19th. 19th. So just to give you an idea of how long they've been sitting in a bin unread. So sorry about that again, Paul. Paul goes on to read, I think the topic covered regarding the future status of wild sour beer as a style was a great one. Lots of ground to cover. I also feel that there was a giant elephant in the room that was totally overlooked, at least from my perspective. Similar to how easy it is for people to discuss the merits, differences, and attributes of kettle sours versus wild/spontaneous beers, I feel that the decision for brewers like myself to focus on using local ingredients and producing unique, place-based beers should be at least mentioned when placing our beers in the same sentence as rare barrel, etc. It's an important distinction that people like me, Niall at Mad Fritz, and a few others are putting our money into, supporting our local agriculture. It's funny how this, quote, local and, quote, craft goes deep into other trades such as food, handcrafts, but beer is largely overlooked. I feel like us producers need to lead the education, like with the kettle sour thing, heading into this brave new world. Anyway, it got me thinking about the relationship between us as well, since I had met you at your shop back in the fall. I found it odd that you didn't bring that up when referencing our brewery or even reach out to me for comment. Anyway, I know that everyone gets busy, but I hope you take to heart what I put into the blog. I wish you the best and hope that people are enjoying our beer in Chi-Town. Sincerely, Paul. So, I thought he had an interesting note that how even within wild and sour beers, there is the kettle sour versus the more slow aging stuff, and they are different, and one is more expensive than the other. But then even beyond that, it's he went on to write later about how like there's places that are doing non-kettle sour that are almost like sour beer like manufacturing places now, and I think he put some of the bigger West Coast heavily sour breweries on there. It wasn't in this email, so I don't want to totally put him on blast, but he was pretty open about it, that there's some breweries out there that are focusing on wild ales that are just basically not putting near the kind of love and attention that someone like the Ale Apothecary is, and that there should be a distinction made about that, where you're sourcing the stuff and how you're producing the stuff and stuff like that. So I thought it was a valid point to bring up. So I wanted to read it. What do you? I'm getting a lot of facial expressions from you.
Yeah,
What are you thinking?
On a face journey. Yeah. I mean, to start, I really enjoy what Ale Apothecary does. I'm particularly a big fan of Sahali.
Yeah.
Or Sahali. I don't know. It's
Bernat.
It's really fantastic. But this has been going on for a while, and really just as soon as kettle sours gained popularity, just any acidified beer, there's been kind of a little bit of upstairs downstairs. We want people to know that our beer is a lot more expensive because we put a lot of more time and effort into it, and that's totally valid.
Right. And I think Black Project from Denver famously had a shirt that said "Death to Kettle Sours" or something like that.
Well, yeah, and aren't they also one of the founding members of the
Oral thing?
No,
Not Oral, but
SWAG, the Sour and Wild Ale Guild, the folks behind Metho Traditional with Jester King and a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it just the cynical part of me says this is just a method to just gain some distinction between their competitors that are more price conscious, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm really conflicted about this because what they do is really fantastic. It does require a lot more time and patience and effort, and frankly, it costs more to produce. Mm-hmm. So I understand that the price point's different, but
right. I mean, and for Ale Apothecary, they have they're probably their most famous beer is a Sati, where they literally filter it through a hollowed out log.
They cut a dang
filled with,
tree
like,
down.
Yeah, with like spruce tips and
Traditional.
Yeah, it's the it is the most handmade beer you can buy anywhere. Period. And I will go to the mat on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's also $40
for a 750. Yeah,
I can do that a couple times.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an occasion beer.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely ringing on some things that I think about a lot, where saisons and quote-unquote wild beer, farmhouse beer, all of that, the language that we have right now for that kind of beer is not great.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
like we make what we call wild beer or mixed fermentation beer is probably more accurate because we're not pulling wild yeast from our environment in Logan Square. But we are carefully choosing different bacteria and yeast and making really nice barrel-aged, long-term co-fermented beers. But the language on that, well, you don't want to say mixed ferm. That sounds kind of inside baseball. You don't want to say wild because is it if you're choosing these yeasts specifically? And we also have a very a kettle sour program that we're really proud of, and we treat that very differently. Like you said, it's $10 a pour for the wild stuff. We still need a better word for that, or it's $6 or $7 a pour for the clean sour.
And I know Off Color, we were talking about them a little bit ago with the High Life that the collaboration they were doing, has been implementing a whole series of like little images on their bottles that kind of give you descriptions of what is going on with the beer, whether it's mixed fermentation or sour or acidified or something like a badge system. Yeah, because it is difficult. But the funny thing is, it's also when it comes down to people asking for beer at the retail location, be it bar or store, I think it's as simplified as like when people call for it than any style. They say, just like there's two things. There's what do you have that's hoppy and what do you have that's sour. And with hoppy beer, it's a pretty good idea of what it is. All right, we've got double IPAs, pale ales, IPAs. So like how strong do you want your hoppy beer? And that's about it. You could say, what do you have that's light? And that's, fairly open-ended. What do you mean by light? Do you mean low alcohol? Do you mean very light on the palate? But with sour, I mean, it could mean, it means one thing. They want it to be sour. They want it to be acidic. But within that, there's such a huge range. There's everything from, these more acidic farmhouse ales that are just slightly kind of tart to a kettle soured, 6-pack of a summery kind of crusher beer to, something poured through a hollowed out log.
Well, and even so many different qualities of what sour means. Are they looking for like vinegary, acetic type sourness? Are they looking for like a softer lactic sourness, which is all like way too much to ask somebody who comes up to a bar or up to a retail counter.
Yeah.
But like sour is just one word, and there's so many shades within it. How do we?
Honestly, what I've been asking then is my follow-up question at the store. It's easier at the store, honestly, than it is at the bar. Are you looking for like a 6-pack, 4-pack, or are you looking for a single bottle? And that, for me, helps to kind of figure out what they're looking for. And they're usually, they're like, oh, I want a 6-pack. I'm like, okay, you want a kettle sour, most likely. And maybe I could steer them to something like a Weiner or something like that that's got a little bit more going on is not the right term, but you know what I'm talking about. Not just strictly a kettle sour. Not there's anything wrong with kettle sours. Berliner Weiss are great, but it is very difficult to figure it out. Then again, at the bar, You just say, yeah, I've got a couple of them, and there's 3. You want to try them? And then you say, which one do you like? You can see how much they cost, and also the price point doesn't hurt as bad, for a single glass versus, $40. I mean, $40 is extreme for the Ale Apothecary. It's about as high as it gets versus, $10 for a 6-pack, of something like Autre Vase or something. Yep.
I don't think it's wholly unfair to say sour and make that a large category, because people who drink Berliner Weisses and more clean sours are more likely to like your wacky sour than someone
Maybe
who
that's
only
what
wants
it's called
pilsners.
now.
I mean, there's no good word for it. It's as good as
Welcome to the Ale
anything to call it a
Apothecary,
wacky
fine
sour.
purveyors of wacky sours.
Just weird. I mean, the funky stuff. Yeah, and I wish there was a better word than funky too. I feel
That's
like
another
we should
qualifier.
spend the rest of this show coming up with a better word for saison and coming up with a better word for mixed fermentation.
Oh, saison by itself is fine. It's what other people create and call it a saison is the problem.
It's so
Or farmers.
broad though, and
No,
I feel like
so
it's not
broad.
inclusive.
I'll push back on that a
because
little.
it's broad enough that like
very
if somebody
broad.
drinks a saison, then it might not be the same if they order another of that style. I think it's even broader than Pilsner. It's broader than Pale Ale.
Absolutely.
And there are like amber saisons out there. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of and like Belgian saisons, like ones that you can't really argue. Like, well, if they call it a saison, it's a saison. They say it is. So, and they're just totally different from one another.
I mean, I feel like we drinkers need to get used to like a less specific description. You know what I mean? Like people are okay with lager meaning a lot of different beers, right? Yeah. Or ale meaning lots of different beers. So sour could be a broad variety. Saison could be a broad variety of things.
I mean, at the same time, people do come in asking for wine, saying, I want a red blend. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that could be, so just as varied. And even if you go grape specific, there can be very, very different. If someone asks me for a Riesling, what's your favorite Riesling? More likely than not, I'm going to give them a wine that they are not expecting to get.
Yeah.
It'll probably be not nearly as sweet as they're expecting it to be. Mm-hmm. Or more acidic is probably what it would be. Mm. So I think that does, there are other areas where people, they know what they want, but they don't know how to ask for it, perhaps. And I think it is, I think what Paul was saying and in the follow-up conversations as well is, he's looking for the end, the end member of the chain of the sales chain, the retailer, to kind of be out there helping fight the fight. And what he really wants is for, to be held in higher regard, as you were kind of alluding to, Nate. And he needs our help to kind of differentiate why, that beer is worth this much. And, for that same price, you can get several 6-packs of this beer, which is also sour. Yeah. And, it is a very complicated... It's complicated. It's a tough ask.
But it's probably similar to IPA. Do you want a 6-pack for $10, or do you want a 4-pack of some hypey
for $20?
IPA for $20? Like the price range is not too different. It's probably a little bit more extreme on mixed firm, but I think that it exists in other categories. I was also interested in. I think he made a good point about the importance of the locality of beer, because I think that Hopewell, we're a tiny brewery, we get a ton of benefit from that. I think he was sort of alluding that they don't get a ton of benefit from that, but craft beer is all a part of the same movement.
They don't get a benefit. I think he feels that the beers themselves benefit from it, but that
their
from a sales standpoint.
Yeah, I think we get a huge
beer does.
benefit from a sales standpoint in Chicago.
Well, I think he says, pardon me, that I think I don't want to is what you're saying that you get a huge benefit from the fact that it's made locally, right?
Yes, and I think that we're all part of the same movement of consumption where people want farmers markets. They want to know their producers. I don't think that craft beer's different from the other things he was mentioning with restaurants and farms.
The way I interpreted what he said was more that, and I'll just read what he said again. I feel that the decision for brewers like myself to focus on using local ingredients and producing unique place-based beers should at least be mentioned when placing our beers as in the same sentence as rare barrel, etc. It's an important distinction that people like me, blah, 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 supporting local agriculture. It's funny how this local and craft goes deep in other trades, food and handcrafts, but beer is largely overlooked. And that's what I think you were talking about, where local very much is a selling point that people glom onto. But what I think he means is that it's of that place.
Yeah,
And the
terroir.
The barley was grown, or whatever,
Yeah.
all the hops and everything,
Well, I guess I'm curious about Dovetail then, because Dovetail is sourcing the yeast from Chicago. Like it's an actual.
Sure. I mean,
it's an actual cool ship. Like you're getting yeast from the brown line right there. You know?
Yeah, that's part of the spiel.
I mean that seems like for me that would be a huge
that's,
selling point.
That's a big sense of place thing for us. I mean, when you get into supporting local agriculture, I mean, we're getting grains shipped in and hops from wherever, especially when it comes to the spontaneous stuff because they're just aged hops. But I mean, you can't get a more Chicago fermentation because it's just coming from the air outside and around the brewery. And for us, it's a big selling point. And I know that when the brewers were testing out to see if you could even make this type of beer here, it was in Hagen's backyard in a tiny little cool ship. That's very cute.
But now for the industry folks, have you noticed, beers that are made with the other ingredients being local? Is there? I mean, I've often heard that the supply of malted barley is limited. Too limited
Right.
to do beers consistently.
Right.
Or-
In our market, I think it's tough because there's barley, there's malting going on in Wisconsin. There are hop farms in Wisconsin, but not at a level that could sustain more than one brewery at a certain size all year round.
And even hops, are not
Especially.
Even, yeah. But I mean, there are some breweries that do it, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
in North
Sierra
Carolina,
Nevada.
and, like
Has your state beer.
Fontaflora and things.
Yeah.
But-
But I think they're doing a lot of the local barley there. That's right.
And anecdotally from Hopewell, we did one beer that was basically that concept. It was clean living. We called it a Midwest lager, and it was all Midwest malt, all Midwest hops, and kind of told that story with that beer, and it did work really well.
Yeah, I think you can
we-
do
we-
that for a beer.
Yeah, for a beer, but across a brewery, I mean, it wouldn't be a different story. You'd sell it to the same people. It does especially well at the places that are really excited about that. So your food co-ops, your like local markets, it did especially well at that. So I don't see why it wouldn't work, but
the payout, like the other beers you make, would do just as well, right? Probably. I mean, is it worth the extra effort, really, if your beer is going to sell just as well?
If that becomes the norm, the benchmark.
Well, no, I mean, if your beers that are made from barley from Canada,
Right.
or something,
Oh, right,
sell
right.
just as
Well,
well
there
as
also
the
has
one
to
that's
be,
local. That's,
I think in the term terroir is used pretty loosely, I think, in beer, but I mean, it really is a wine term, and there is, it's supposed to taste a certain way if it's from a certain region. If you get a Pinot Noir from the Burgundy region of France and it tastes like it's from Napa, people are not going to be happy with that because it's not supposed to taste like that. And if they say, "Oh, well, yeah, we just sourced our grapes from Napa," and we press them here. I mean, it's kind of the reverse of what's going on here. If you're getting your barley from Wisconsin, but it doesn't taste any different than the Minnesota barley, then what are you? I guess you're just not just, but you're supporting local. What's the story there? What's the why should people care? Just because you're supporting local business, a local farmer, but the farmer maybe in Minnesota is a local farmer there. It's still,
I mean, the immediate impact might be reduced carbon footprint.
Sure.
Well,
That's
and
good.
Terroir is a big thing in hops. Like, have you tried the Michigan Chinook next to? It's
night and day.
It's night and day. I mean, you're
talking about.
There's a ton of examples of just hops grown in different regions that are that taste totally different. Like Hallertau Blanc, I think I was telling you. My understanding is that is Cascade grown in Germany.
Or is it Hugh Malone?
Hugh Mellon.
Hugh Mellon.
Hugh Mellon. That's right. Not Hallertau. Hugh Mellon. Is that right?
I don't know. Some beer, some hop grown
late
there.
in the show. You should ask Jake the next time he's on.
Hot take Jake.
But there's a ton of terroir and like a ton of benefit to different regions, so we can get real Midwest flavors. The malt we were getting from Wisconsin was really excellent stuff. A little bit more, just heirloomy, a little bit just sort of different flavor. So I do feel like there was some different differentiators beyond just the business. But I also, to kind of counteract that, think that the most important part was supporting your local economies. I think that, flavors are all great, but that's why I hope people want to buy Hopewell, is because they live in Chicago and they want to support a business in their community.
Mm-hmm. And even if you're talking about produce, why do people go to farmers markets and buy their fruit and vegetables there rather than from at the Jewel? Quality, right? Because it's fresher,
presumed quality,
and it's because it's from maybe more care was given to the growing of those.
Ideally, but I think there's maybe a connection with like the brewery taproom model. It's you're meeting those people.
Yeah.
You're speaking with the people
You're going
who
to
maybe
the source.
Brought that tomato to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm just trying to think about it from the talking about what Paul from Ale Apothecary was talking about with place-based beers, where you can have Ale Apothecary beer in Chicago, and it is a representation of the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, for those guys. Or I don't know if it's technically Pacific Northwest, but whatever. Where are they from exactly, Nate? Is
it Bend, Oregon?
Yeah, I think so.
Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, Bend. It's Pacific Northwest. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to get a letter.
Oh, you probably will.
Yeah, Paul getting all fired up.
So was he saying they don't get as much hype as Rare Barrel or something? Or?
No, I think what he wants is just distinctions or stratifications of.
Yeah, I kind of read that as I don't know. I feel like I'm being a jerk here, but like it's almost like he wants more credit for, say, like the spontaneous culture of his region rather than a place like Rare Barrel that probably just buys a blend from White Labs or something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And just cranks it out. Buys a whole bunch of barrels, doses a ton of them, does a bunch of blends, and just kind of
that was my
cranks
read.
through it.
And and
there is a difference.
Yeah,
there is.
I think there's a lot of great business model ideas he could implement. I don't know if he has the capital.
And again, in wine, you have all those variants, even within Napa. You have stuff where it's just, people sourcing just the lower grade fruit to people who are using more local fruit, to people who are doing single vineyard, to people doing like the best parcels in all of Napa, and you have that within a single winery. Sometimes, a big winery will have all of that stuff, and I guess that's okay. I mean, if there's like a Napa cab, you can buy a $10 or a $7 Napa cab. You can also buy a $500 Napa cab.
It's a plurality.
Yeah,
I think wine's a really good example for this style of beer.
Certainly.
And part of the reason is because wine is more about the palate of the person who's doing the blending. You're very rarely putting just like a single barrel or like a single example of this out. You're usually doing some blending to come up with like the final result. I think that the way most breweries are approaching their, I'll just call it sour right now, program.
wacky sour.
We'll rate them A through F.
Yeah.
Sour program is especially on the wild and mixed fermentation stuff is blending, and that's the same with wine. You can have tremendous source product, and if you're not blending it properly, it's not actually going to taste very good. So I'm sure that his team is really good at the blending and making sure that they're putting out a really nice balanced product. And that's not to say that you can't do the same thing by choosing which yeast you want.
Sure.
Here's a theory. What about comparing this to mezcal production?
Okay.
I mean, you were just in Mexico, Shana. Did you? Are you familiar with mezcal at all?
I've had a lot of mezcal in my day.
Have you visited one of the?
But I have not
distillery?
visited a distillery.
I mean, my understanding of that is that it's very hands-on, very it's all spontaneously fermented. It's
Max rusticity.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimate terroir. It's not coming from a barrel. It's not. There's no aging. It's a very intensive process. There's an organization in Chicago called Sacred that works with Mexican agave farmers. That that guy, Lou Bank. He's a cool dude. If you mention his name, he'll show up with like a suitcase full of mezcals that he calls Distilado de Agave or something, because there's this whole thing about the denomination of origin and all that. But maybe that's a comparison there. A lot of these small producers are having trouble now because they're big companies coming in that are,
Jose Cuervo's or
or whatever.
Somebody with a worm in it. Some guy puts the worm in the bottle.
Buy
the
up
Hope
all
Balls of the world.
the rare barrels of the world.
Yeah.
And buy all the agave fields and stuff, and then these smaller guys can't afford to get designated, and they can't even call it mezcal anymore. So anyways, maybe that's a comparison.
So I wanted to thank Paul for sending in that letter, and if anyone else wants to send a letter about that letter or about anything else, you can send it to insiders at Craft Beer Temple. Yeah, about mezcal. Insiders at craftbeertemple.com. But I did want to leave some time for a bit of a obituary, I suppose. A lot of craft beer magazines have gone under. Pretty much all of them, by a lot. I mean, all. And I think, to me, I guess the granddaddy of them all would be All About Beer. But the biggest one was Beer Advocate. And it was just recently announced that the print version of that is going away. And, it's interesting. I can't say that I'm not surprised. I'm a little saddened, but at the same time, I don't get that magazine anymore. I used to subscribe to it. I don't anymore.
If you were still a subscriber like I am, you would be getting Craft Beer and Brewing magazine to fulfill the rest of your subscription. So, last man standing, maybe. I don't know.
Man, that's what they're doing. They're just like, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that, Andrew?
I mean, it's interesting to me that their website that rates beer as well, first and foremost, I think that the website predated the magazine. And in some, I mean, it's sad that they won't be publishing, but they're still publishing articles on their website.
Mm-hmm.
They're not waiting for a monthly product. So as long as they'll still pay writers, then it could be a good thing. It could be more timely, could be a way to get more stuff out. But I mean, it's always sad when you lose a print publication, but it might be smart. I don't know. Might be a good move.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what are your thoughts about the beer brewing industry overall? So weird.
we got some CB
Yeah.
crosstalk.
Exactly. Breaker. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're moving to they're implementing a membership thing, like the Respect Beer Society or something like that as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Beer Advocate kind of killed itself, because the culture of hype and discussion boards and all that stuff doesn't fit in with a print publication. Like it sort of is at odds by nature because you've got a 3-month lead time or whatever, if you're going to get into the print magazine, and you can't be in every little city. Like beer is getting so much more localized by, small hype breweries or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I think, yeah.
It doesn't
we
lend
can go
itself.
down that road.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe it lends itself to a travel magazine or something, but I don't know if you're going to want to read about it in a print publication.
Right. I mean, you don't think that craft beer publications going out of business is anything unique to craft beer, right?
No, I mean, I think it's
about
just
paying
indicative.
writers. Yeah.
It's also indicative to people moving to online discussion and blogs and all that stuff. Like that's where they're doing their reading.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What do you feel, Nate? Do you still what's the status of your?
People are just checking bottle caps on Untapped.
Right.
Yeah, all these
Like
whiz-bang
I
new
said,
ideas.
I only think
Can't
about
turn the
quality.
pages anymore.
Right.
Damn kids.
Any thoughts? You're an old beer advocate guy, right?
I was an old beer advocate guy. I was just thinking about that and how I haven't logged in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. It's unfortunate that that the print publication has gone the way of the dinosaur, but I don't know. Like, yeah, I hope they're still going to pay journalists to write about beer, and I hope that there is something beyond sponsored content for people who are interested in reading about what's going on in the beer industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's worth noting in passing that I'm guessing all of us here have read a Beer Advocate magazine and enjoyed it. I for a while was keeping mine and then was like, I'm getting rid of all the chucking them all. But yeah, it was cool. And I also used to like to go into the Hop Leaf and see them stacked up there, and I'd always grab one, steal one to go. Yeah. And just changing of the guard onto bottle caps. We're off the 100-point. The good news is we're off the 100-point system. Although they changed to a 4 out of 5. They went back to the bottle cap system, right? Didn't they?
I
think they went to a 5-point system.
I couldn't keep it straight. I stopped when they were at a 5-point scale.
Yeah, they went to a 5-point scale because that's what Untapped. Presumably, that's what what Untapped was doing. But but it wasn't bottle caps. I would have gone to a 10,000 point scale, but all bottle caps. Wow. I give this beer 7,500 bottle caps. It was okay. I want to say that and really mean it.
Yeah, 95,000 bottle caps, a hard find.
Yeah, 100. It should be a 1 to 100,000 bottle cap scale. What do you say? You're in, right, Nate?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm always there for bottle caps.
Yeah. This is easily a 65,000 bottle cap beer.
Yeah.
Would never have it again.
Thanks for the tick.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else want to talk about Beer Advocate? No? Everyone else? Okay. Well, R.I.P. Rips. Producer Jamie's in here getting ready to kick us out. So let's give our final goodbyes. Shana, anything you would like to say in closing?
Drink beer.
Okay. Great.
Enjoy beer. Stop rating beer so much. Just have a pint. Come on.
Not to get too political, but a hot dog is a sandwich.
Oh, here we go.
The end.
Okay. Jonathan.
You're going to need to get the dump button ready after that. Hope everybody gets a chance to drink some of our lagers. We'll be pouring one of them at our friends at Brothers and Sisters. It's a restaurant in Chicago is rebranding as all together now because they were getting sued by Brothers and Sisters.
just brothers and sisters. People who are brothers and sisters were suing them.
Another restaurant of the same name.
Oh, okay.
But since they're throwing a funeral party, a
that's
black
cool.
lager
I love
is
it.
the perfect thing to drink.
Love it.
At a funeral.
Love that.
So drink
That's cool.
drink black lager and
call
drink
to action.
natural wine at their place.
Yeah.
If you
If
can.
so choose. One can. Yes. And Andrew.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to say, even though I don't like it, I think people should be allowed to eat ketchup on a hot dog. You know, that's fine. It's okay, even in Chicago.
Yeah. I don't care one way or the other about that. Yeah. I will also say that there is a picture of Dusty online. I put him up there on Instagram. And I was telling the guys here that he's gone viral, and that at this rate, if I get this rate of likes continually, which I assume I will, by the end of the year, he'll have over 500,000 likes. So there you go.
That's a lot of bottle caps.
Yeah.
He'll get there.
Kylie Jenner, eat your heart out because there's a new person.
New influencer.
Yeah, and his name is Dusty.
Can't wait for his lip palette.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you so much. It's been a blast. I want to thank all my guests. We will see you next week for more of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we